Welcome back to Mark Hollis the Vlog, everyone. Thanks for joining in again today. Thought we would take the Jag out for a really good, fun little drive. Actually, I'm going to pick up some parts. I have to do an oil change on the X5. But that just brings me to the discussion about driving these cars every day and using them for everyday occurrences. And that's, of course, what the point of this video is about. And really, before I dive into this too far, and before the channel develops too far, I need to express to you guys how I got to this point. As a matter of fact, driving nice cars, driving fast cars, fun cars, it doesn't matter. As long as it excites you or stirs the soul, it doesn't matter if it's an old Model A or if it's a classic Camaro or if it's a Ferrari, it doesn't matter. I've always had the passion for unique cars, and truly, I believe you don't want to have regrets. So that's what we're talking about today, is life's too short to drive boring cars, and ultimately that's why we're driving a Jag every day now. A lot of you guys probably think that, sure, it's easy for me to say that I can drive these nice cars doing YouTube, I can drive them every day, but for people that actually have jobs maybe in construction or other kind of random jobs, maybe it's not practical to drive fast cars, cool cars that attract a lot of attention to their daily drives. Even if they have the money, they don't necessarily find it practical. And I would agree. I mean, I've been down that road too, and that's where I have to explain kind of where I came from. Ultimately, I come from a heavy construction background, engineering, all of that fun stuff. But there was years when I worked in construction trades and I had to drive to dirt, gravel, sort of construction zones. And of course, I'm not going to drive a Porsche there. It just doesn't make sense. The thing that I'm trying to make sense of is the fact, as long as I have a car like that waiting in the garage, so that when that Saturday night rolls around, that I'm able to go fire up the car and go for a rip. It's not always practical, you guys, I know it's not always practical to have that one car that's a supercar or whatever it is. It's not always practical to have that. And I lived that life as well. I mean, I had that for years, and truly I can tell you, I know what it's like. I actually drove beaters. I drove junky cars because of the environment I often worked in. It just made more sense. They were subjected to bad conditions, harsh conditions, the roads, the weather. Often I just found myself having to compromise just for everyday driving opportunities. And so I've always had the attitude about no regrets. I mean, well, there's actually one regret I've had, and that's that I haven't started YouTube sooner, and that I didn't start owning these kind of interesting cars sooner than I did. But in fact, I did buy them quite young. I started driving Porsches back in my early 20s. And not only that, I saw a Alpine poster with a Lamborghini Countach way back in the 80s, and I mentioned to my old man, because I was with him in a radio shop when we saw that, and I said, one day I'm going to own a Lamborghini. One day I will do that. And I've always lived for that type of goal and objective. Now, I get it, it's not for everyone, and if you're not a car guy, this channel's not for you. So I'll just give you a heads up right now. If you just want to hear, that's fine. But if you're not a car guy, this channel's not for you. If you do want to hear more about cars and you are really into cars and fun cars, and again, it doesn't always have to be about Ferraris and Lambos. It can really just be about cool, interesting vehicles, maybe that just light your day. But I've always been that of an opinion that you never want to live with regrets. And so I've always dreamed about owning supercars. There was never anything more frustrating for a guy like myself, a car guy, that when you're trying to merge into traffic and you put your foot down. And I remember driving, my first car was a Mazda GLC. I don't know if a lot of you guys remember that. It was a Mazda 323 for some of you guys, or I guess a Mazda 3 now would be its current generation. But way back, the GLC was a little hatchback, 4-cylinder car, didn't have any power whatsoever. And when you put your foot down, all you could do is just count. 1,000, 2, 1,000, and the car was very slow. But it was a way to get driving, and I enjoyed that car thoroughly just because it got me exposed to, out there in the world, and allowed me to venture about and see things that I couldn't see by foot or by bicycle. So that was my first experience with a car. And then I bought a Fiat X19. That's right, because I knew already that I wanted something special, and so I bought an X19. I don't know if you guys remember those. Back in the mid-70s, they were a real heap of junk, but they were fun. They were that little wedge-shaped Italian sports car made by Fiat, back when Fiat kind of had a bit of a passion for cars, although they didn't know how to build them. That was a problem because they rusted out like nobody's business. But I moved into that Fiat X19, and I drove the crap out of that, worn out the wheel bearings. It had bad electrics. As a matter of fact, the tachometer would flash, and I'd give the dash a hit, and then the tach would jump back up. And it had a crunchy synchronizers in the gearbox, so it didn't shift very well. It leaked, it smoked, but it was a lot of fun to drive, and honestly, it was my first experience to what I consider an exotic car. Because while everybody's out there driving the old Honda Civics in those days, I was driving my little Fiat X19, and it was a very attractive little car. Mine was white with the black roof, and it looked pretty cool. And I enjoyed it, and like I said, I wore out 3 sets of tires, wheel bearings. I mean, I ran the wheels off that thing. Then I moved into an RX-7, which was the second generation RX-7. Mine was a GX, so it was like the middle of the road. I love that Wankel rotary engine. It was a great car because it could rev to the moon. Now, there was no torque there. You basically just keep your foot down and watch it rev up to 8,500 RPM, and it just keeps spinning and spinning and spinning, and eventually you just get to the red line and you shift and you do it all over again. And it was a great car. Mine was a 5-speed manual, and I really enjoyed it. I bought it with low Ks, 30,000 kilometers. I drove it to about 80,000. I sold it. That was my toy. I really, really enjoyed that. Then I had a few other pieces of garbage along the way. In between time, I had a Toyota Corolla. I had a Plymouth Horizon. That was a real winner. Piece of car, hatchback, kind of a sporty looking thing, but it was trash. When I bought it, it was already misfiring. It was just not a well put together car. Then I moved into other things. I bought a couple pickup trucks. I bought a 79 GMC and then an 81 GMC. Those things were just basically material movers, not much more. They were kind of beaters. Then is my first experience. I rode along with a friend of mine who picked up a 1977 Porsche 911. It was a 911S, not their greatest iteration. That's the cars with they had the magnesium cases, which pulled head studs, and they leaked, and they had compression leaks. And they weren't great cars, but it was a lot of fun. And honestly, the first day he got it, he picked me up, we went out for a ride, and we were out racing, street racing against all kinds of cars like Mustangs, beating the pants off of Harley Davidson motorcycles. And we were taking traffic circles in the city here at Mock Chicken, really, really enjoying the car thoroughly. And that exposed me to the world of Porsche. And I really said to myself, nope, RX-7, gone. Because I knew that 911 had something. There was a flavor, there was a character to it that really spoke my name. And there was a design language and a performance attitude about the car that you couldn't find anywhere. I hadn't had that experience till that point. So then I got in my first 911, and I bought an older one, a 69. I didn't have it very long because some friends wanted to buy it off me. So I bought it. I owned it for a short time, then I sold it right away. Then I bought another one, a 79 SC, and it was a Targa this time. Better engine, better car all the way around, but I had a few problems. But again, being the Targa, it wasn't the true enthusiast car. I thought the coupe always just looked a little bit better. So I drove that for a bunch of years. Then I had an experience. Took a road trip down to Southern California. As a matter of fact, I was driving down to Los Angeles along the Pacific Coast Highway, enjoying the fruits of what driving really should be and the absolute passion and benefits of living on the West Coast there in Southern California. And I was driving down those roads, and we stopped across a town. Actually, I found some classifieds, and I saw there was a car in the classifieds, and it was a 77 Porsche 930. And it was a really odd minty green, and it had a dark green shag interior carpet. And realistically, it was kind of nasty because it was sort of very 70s motif, but it just had a flavor. It had that kind of slightly burning smell to it. It had, that smell, that sound, that sensation. We took it for a drive, and the owner of the car, he was lollygagging through the neighborhood, and then he hit the on-ramp. And then he guns it first, second, third, and all I feel is the back end squirming a little bit underneath of poor traction. And the first thing that came to mind was, when I get home, this 911 SC is gone, and I got to get me a turbo. So that's exactly what I did. I put the 911 SC up for sale. Took a little while. It took actually months, actually a couple of years, to be honest. But I finally sold the car to a gentleman in a neighboring city down in Calgary. And then when I finally had the cash in hand, I traded up, and I found this beautiful 930 in the city of Calgary as well, which I'm from Edmonton, so it was about a 3-hour drive south. I went down to Calgary, scoped this car out. I had been looking at it throughout the summer. He had it listed for some time. To be honest, when I first spoke to him, he said there was a little bit of road rash underneath the rockers, so that turned me off at first. But then summer went on. I had difficulty finding any others. I went and looked at it, and the car was actually very, very nice, and it was much better than I envisioned. So I went and had a look, test drove it, I was very satisfied, and I bought it. So then I drove the car for a couple of years, and then realized, well, there's a few oil leaks. So I took the car into my favorite mechanic, who at the time I'd just known him for a couple of years at that point, and that was Ed of Elegant Motors here. He looked it up and down, and I said, Ed, can we just do a reseal on the top end? It looked like we had some leaks coming out of around the heads and the oil return tubes. So I said, let's just do a top end rebuild. So we tore into it, and I gave him a hand, and we looked at it, and as we started to rip into it, we started realizing, there was other issues. We noticed all of a sudden every single compression ring was broken. So we tore that apart. So then we pulled the jugs, then we pulled the pistons out. Then we looked in deeper, pulled the oil pump, split the case, did all that stuff, and realized that the car needed a lot of work. It was actually quite brutalized and quite worn out, to be honest. I did a little research after the fact and found the car was actually tracked a fair amount. So the car had seen some much overboost conditions, driven hard, put away wet, and quite honestly, ended up costing me about $30,000 by the time it was all said and done, because I ended up having to do a complete split case engine rebuild from top to bottom, new piston cylinders, cams. I reworked the heads. I put some performance parts in there. Also did some of the fuel injection upgrades, and there was some of the blocks for the injector blocks, and some bits and pieces that had to be changed along the way. Put a new clutch in it, flywheel, all that good stuff. By the time it was said and done, I was into it for about $25,000, $30,000 all in. But now I had a fresh car, so I drove it for another probably 5 years, 6 years, and then I sold it to the current owner. Great guy, local guy for sure. And as far as I can tell, he's been very happy with it. So then we moved into the Lamborghini world. Ed has always had a lot of great cars around his shop. Throughout the different ownership time that I've had the Porsche, I'd visit Ed at different times. He'd have Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and it crossed my mind, you know what, now I'm yearning for a supercar, an Italian supercar. Gallardos were always there at his shop, not for bad reasons, tune-ups, oil changes, the odd clutch. So I knew that they were fairly robust, but I loved the way they looked, and I loved the way they sounded. And my first ride in one, with the tingly sensation that you get in the back and the spine and the shake that you get and the sound that you get out of that and the wail of the V10, my first exposure to that, I was done. Mind blown, guys. I needed to get one. So I sold the Porsche, I bought a Gallardo, and the rest is history. So as you can see, it moves on. And all I'm trying to say is I went from a time where I started with a very basic car, and I transitioned to sports car, high-end sports car, supercar, and we just keep moving up and up. And it's not for a Joneses thing. It's because I'm a passionate guy about supercars, and I believe that you should never have regrets in this life, because life's short. Look what's going on around us today. Do you want to be that guy that's hoarding a mountain of cash in your bank account, and then you can't travel, you can't buy anything, and you can't enjoy any of it because ultimately there's nobody to enjoy it with, and you can't go anywhere and do anything? So what's the point of it? Do you want to have those regrets? Well, I don't, and I never did. So that's where I'm at today, guys. I'm a really, really firm believer in, the whole attitude about drive what makes you happy, but don't just drive a car from A to B. Now, there are people that just aren't car people, and they don't care, and they just want something to get them to work or to school. And I don't blame them. I get it. I know what it's for. I mean, there's people that just rather ride the bus, and there's people that would just rather ride their bicycle to work because it's better for their health, better for the environment, and quite honestly, it's just much, much cheaper to do. But I've never had that attitude. Yeah, I've always enjoyed sports, and I've ridden bicycles lots throughout my teen years, and I continue to do that. I enjoy the experience of riding bicycles, and I understand driving a regular ho-hum vehicle for A to B. I understand. You don't want to be driving a nice car, park it in a busy parkade, and worry about somebody dinging it or clashing it or slashing it or do something like that. So there's a certain stress level that goes with owning some of these cars, and I get why people don't want that stress. People also don't necessarily want to be tied to the financial commitment of it. There's a lot of reasons why you wouldn't, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about life's way too short to drive boring cars. And if you're a car guy, I'm here to tell you guys, I was one of these guys. I never had a lot of money, but I graduated from one level to the next, to the next, to the next. And I never let my working conditions or my environment hamper the kind of cars that I drive. I always find ways to prioritize and make the car mine. And so that's where I'm at today. And I'm here to tell you guys, if you're a car person or enthusiast, don't let those little hurdles get in your way. If you're not a car guy, fine. There's another channel down the road. As a matter of fact, he talks lots about Toyota and Lexus and how to fix them and how to save $1.50 on a set of brake pads. That's not me. I don't care about that. I really do care about driving exciting cars. And I think if you guys are watching this channel, you've watched this far, you probably are as well. So I would suggest, if you enjoy the fun cars, go out, indulge. Again, life's short. Why not enjoy a little bit of the fruits of your labor? You work hard for it. I worked hard for my time and my cash and my cars. So let's just go out there and do it. Thanks again, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to drop a line. Let me know what you think. Is that kind of a bad attitude that I have? Or is it really the way to live? Because ultimately life is short. So thanks again. Hope you subscribe, and we'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.